Many thanks for clicking on our video. You probably saw in an earlier video from my colleague Phil Farley the importance we give to financial planning, and in particular real-time financial planning. Key to this is the software that we use, and I thought it would be a good idea to run through a test case with you on our large screens to show you this in action and the benefits that it can give. Can I set the scene on the case study first and then what you're looking at? So this client came into us, he's 57 years of age, would like to retire at 60. The reason for that was he was actually getting a little bit tired of doing the job and he was hoping to maybe wind down. He owns a business himself and his wife. They have pension funds built up, but they're not making any contributions into them. They own their own home. They have a residential investment property where they're getting rental income with some debt. And really his key thing was, could he retire at 60? And he asked us for help as to how to do this. So he gave us all the details in advance. We populated these various tabs here. We were able to put in all the details that we need, and we were able, when he came in with his wife, we were able to sit down and work through, this is his balance sheet. Effectively shows the assets and the liabilities, and we were able to tell him how much he was worth. Okay. The next thing then was we showed him his income and expenditure. So we showed him what income he was earning and also what expenses he had told us that he was spending, and also the expenses that he wanted to live on if he was able to retire. Now, we can work through all these numbers. For those of you who are very interested in numbers, we can roll through these on a year-by-year basis if you want. But what we found over the last 3 years working with a huge amount of these plans and our clients is that this button here called Let's See gives the functionality that you need to see. So if I go into the plan that we started off with, and what we're looking at here is, all you can see are loads of colours. What does that really mean? The key thing to focus on is the black line. The black line are the total expenses that this client needs to meet. And this is a cash flow plan. So this shows income coming in versus income going out. The income coming in are all of these different colours. So this one here, for example, is rental income. This one here is state pension. And this is his own income. So the problem here is we've red. So when you see red on this software, what it means is that you don't have enough money to cover your expenses. So what can we do about that? So there's some really cool simulations that you can run on the system. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to get a handle on what type of return would the client need in order to cover these expenses. So let's just keep looking at these two. So the first one is the original plan, where you can see loads of red with expenses. The next one now is you've no red, which means all the expenses are covered. But the problem is we need a return of 12.62%. The client isn't going to get that, and there's very few advisors out there, if none really, that can get you an annualised return of that. So we have a problem there. The next thing then is we said to the client, okay, do you have the ability to save this amount each year before you retire? So he needed to save $119,995 again to cover his expenses, and in reality that was a non-runner. So really we had to say to this client that he wasn't going to be able to retire at 60 based on what he had given us. So we tried to explore this a bit more with him, and then we said, hold on a minute, okay, well what if you maybe retire at 65 rather than 60? So that's an edit time tool that allows us to do this again in real time, which is what we're talking about, making decisions in real time. So if we look at this, we've got his income going to 65 rather than 60. You can see there are red, but it's much later on in the plan when he's 81. Okay. Now, so let's have a look and see what return does he need. We went through this already. Let's go through it again. The return he needs is 6.13%. That's a lot lower than 12%, possibly achievable if you're looking at taking a greater risk, but this client couldn't afford to take this risk, haven't had the discussion with them. So we had another problem. The problem is that he still wanted to get out at 65, we're looking at, or at 60, we're looking at 65. The return is too high for him. So what we decided to do was, we explored the possibility of his home, because he mentioned to us that he'd like to downsize at some stage. So again, what the software allows you to do is it allows you to create what-if plans. So we've named this one called Downsize. And what I've done is I've gone into the property here, and just to show you how it works, we have the home, which we've now created to sell at 70. So we're now going to sell his home at 70. And interestingly now what we're going to do is we're now going to get him to buy a new property for 400,000, okay? And we're going to do that when he's 70. So the reserves that he's going to get from selling his home will allow him to buy this smaller home with 400,000, which will create extra money inside his plan that he can then live on going forward. So again, the software takes into account all of these details. So let's have a look and see how this looks. And if I just increase that a little bit, you can see that there's no red here. Absolutely no red at all. So that indicates to us that he could still work to 65, then sell his property at 70 and have enough to live on, as in create 50,000 expenses for himself every year. But his key thing was getting out early. So again, let's go in and change these. So we brought this back to 60. So we brought back him stopping earning at 60. So we now have him stopping earning at 60, but the problem is, there's the red again. So the problem with this plan is that from between 65 and 70, he doesn't have enough to get there. So then what we decided to do was, why don't we actually sell or downsize earlier? So if we downsize, so I go into property, and instead of selling his home, okay, when he's 70, let's sell it when he's 64. So we sold it when he's 64, and now we're going to go in and downsize the property. Now that downsizing the property was when he was 70. I want this to happen, as in I want him to buy a smaller property when he's 64 rather than 70. Okay, so let's have a look and see how this works. So this big spike here, that's the property, the money coming into the plan because the property is being sold, and this is the money going out of the plan to buy the smaller property. Okay, and look, we've no red here. The only red we have is at the end of the plan around 87. So let's look at the return he needs. You're looking at a return of 5%. Bingo. What that means is, based on this client's risk profile, we believe that we can get him a net return of 5% over the long term, which is exactly what he needs to allow him to retire at 60, sell his home and downsize at 64, and have the quality of life that he needs. So we discussed all this in real time with himself and his wife. We put a plan in place. We looked at his portfolio to make sure that it was structured the right way to give him those returns. And on a year-by-year basis, we meet up to make sure that he meets this requirement. So one last thing to show you. I'm going to now compare these plans. So this is, if I go into this chart first and show you, this is what it was like when he came into me first. Okay, and now what we've done is we now have him with this plan downsizing, and you can see we've got rid of all the red expenses. So this is the type of thing that we can do for you, and if you're interested in exploring this further, please contact either myself and Phil, and we'd be happy to sit down with you and run through it all. Thank you.